Welcome to your daily morning C.A.R.s routine. We're going to start with the neck and work our way down, 3 reps of each. You can roll the shoulders back and take a big exhale to get set, and then we'll begin. So with the neck C.A.R.s, you're going to start by pivoting the chin down, reaching the back of the head up, and then gliding it across one collarbone to the shoulder, tilting your head back a bit, and then rainbowing it up and over to the opposite shoulder, tucking it and gliding it back to the sternal notch, and then returning. That was 1/2 of a rep. And like I said before, we're going to do 3 each direction. As you're doing these C.A.R.s, keep in mind that we're working here at like a 40 to 70% intensity. So the goal is not to build strength, it's just to tell the mechanoreceptors of the joint where we can move and build a better relationship with the connection between the nervous system and that joint. So we have good access to it for our training beyond and other life stuff beyond these drills. As we finish up this 3rd and final rep, keep in mind that any position that creates pain on the closing angle, so as I'm tilting my left ear toward my left shoulder, if I get pain on the left side, on the closing angle side, don't drive into that. Instead, kind of just scoop around that little area of discomfort and then continue on with the intensity that you want to work at for the remainder of your C.A.R.s rotation. And then it's best practice to then seek out some manual care for this pinching pain that you might be feeling on the closing angle. All right, we're going to move down the body to the shoulders. Keep the elbows locked throughout and start with your thumbs pulling back or your arms in full external rotation. Then as you reach overhead, your biceps are going to start to internally rotate. Continue rotating the arms as you go until you are completely into end range internal rotation at the back of the movement, and then we'll sweep around and start to externally rotate as you come back to the front of the movement. So external rotation to start, internal rotation at the back half. See how my pinkies are flaring forward, shoulders are shrugged, and then external rotation begins right here as I come back forward. So we're not just sweeping the arm, we're rotating it to the edges of their capacity in each direction as we sweep. That's an important little layer of the concept that's usually going to come with some practice reps, like maybe 50 practice reps, and you'll get better and better at really creating the effort and stabilizing everything else while that one joint works. Onto the elbows. So again, we're going to start arms at the bottom. Thumbs flare back, external rotation, and then push those thumbs in and down on the way back. Repeat 2 more reps here. So we're just working primarily the rotational property of the elbow because it flexes and extends all day. We're pretty good at that. Keep the knuckles up and reverse it. So thumbs in on the way up and out on the way down. Nice work. Last rep here. Okay, the wrists are up. This one is a great one to pull into your day and do at your keyboard. Essentially, we're just drawing a circle with our knuckles. The hardest part about this is keeping the top of the wrist facing the same direction throughout the set. So in a sense, we're trying not to rotate at the elbow, and that's really hard to keep. So what I'm demonstrating here is both hands working at once. It may behoove you to try a few reps with one hand gripping the opposite wrist while you work that one arm so that you don't have to worry about the elbow rotating. Or you can just practice this and get good at keeping those wrists facing the ceiling. Now we're reversing for 3. It's also really tempting to kind of zip through these, but I want you to get every edge, and the faster you move through it, the more likely you are to miss those little sticky spots. I do these infrequently, and as you can see, they're kind of jumpy. That's a reason for me to practice it more often. If you have some kind of lack of connection and feel like it's jumpy or just not connected, keep practicing. Okay, shoulder blades are next. We're going to punch the arms forward so we can have visual confirmation of movement happening. And we're drawing a big circle with our shoulder blades, keeping the elbows locked out, keeping the ribs and the spine out of the movement. One more in this direction. Shrug it forward, up. And then keep in mind, shrugging back and down right here are typically the most inaccessible parts of this movement. So really drive more effort into that and don't necessarily need a lot more practice lifting the shoulder blades and, well, primarily lifting the shoulder blades. And we're reversing for the last 3 reps here. So now we're scooping around, gliding the shoulder blades together and up, and then forward and down. Did that. Okay, next, let's work on the spine a bit. We're going to do a linear spine drill. Basically, it's the cat-cow in segmented position. So you're going to round into cat to start, really pushing that low back into rounding the most, and then start to unstack and pull through from the base of the spine to the crown of the head into cow or extension. Once you're there, start to tuck the tail, keeping the sternum pulling through and keeping the shoulder blades pushing apart throughout. That's typically the hardest part with this, is letting the shoulder blades glide as you round and extend the spine. It should be just an isolation exercise where the spine only is moving. These drills can be done in different positions, by the way. If you don't feel comfortable in quadruped, you can do this in a seated position and a standing hinge position. There's many ways to do it. So this is just one. If the position is not comfortable for you, feel free to adjust your posture in order to get through this drill. And then you can get real fancy if you want and start from the crown of the head and glide down. That's definitely a little more challenging for most of us than starting from the tail. As you can see, I forgot to extend my neck. There we go. And coming back through to the cat one last time. For this next drill, I want you to stand up and find a door frame or at least a wall. More things to hang on to is better than fewer things to hang on to. And then we're going to practice 3 hip C.A.R.s per leg. If you've never done these before, just hang on to your hat and follow along with me. You're going to get better at them with practice. Maybe 25 reps in, it'll start to be familiar, and 50 reps in, it'll start to become more intuitive. The hardest part about this drill is figuring out how to keep the spine out of it. So I'll just point out a few things that you want to feel for as you go through here. This one, typically as you lift your knee back toward home, is when the hip will hike on that moving leg, which means your spine is laterally flexing. And we don't want any extraneous movement except in the hip joint, just like all the other drills. We're isolating movement in that one joint only. Another thing that can happen is the pelvis can dump forward and back. As you lift your knee here, sometimes it tucks under, and then as you kick back toward the back, sometimes it'll dump forward. Your belly button will dump forward. Those are also movements that we want to avoid and get better at feeling and stopping. We're on the other leg now. The third and final is rotation. So letting the hips rotate toward the wall as I rotate my knees back. And then rotating forward toward the wall in front of my body as I come back to the front of the movement. So right here, turning toward the wall that my hand is on is a mistake that's commonly made. And then regaining it as you bring your leg back around. The goal is to not ever lose that position with your hip headlights shining toward the wall ahead of you. I think we have one final rep here. Okay, we're moving on to the knees, followed by the ankles. You can sit on the floor for this one. Blocking the hip rotation out of this is the big goal here with this scoop under the knee with my inside arm and the outside arm. And the inside arm kind of just blocks the femur from rotating. I'm just pushing gently into my leg right above the knee joint. And then the knee rotation happens instead of the hip rotation. The ankle, yes, we'll try to help. Let it go crazy. That's fine. You'll get better at isolating that out as you do these. But we're rotating externally on the way up, internally on the way down for 3 reps. And then we'll keep the shin rotating inward as we come up. And then external rotation on the way down for 2 more reps. If you're having trouble just getting the knee to rotate, or you just pretty convinced that your knee doesn't rotate, try this little drill first. Kneel on the leg you're gonna work on, the new leg, and then just try to pivot the shin. Use the hand to help. My knee's wiggling a bit, but you get the idea. You're trying to see that tibia, that bone below the knee joint, is gonna rotate on its own, independent of your hip. So find that, and you can, even as you do this drill, you are welcome to use that free hand, my right hand in this case, to help teach the knee to rotate at either end. And on this drill specifically, your shin is going to internally rotate just a tiny bit as you start to pull your heel towards your butt. And as you continue to pull your heel closer to your body, your shin's going to rotate more and more inward. So it's not a big action at either end. It is a continuous movement that will gain range of motion as you extend and flex your knees. All right, we're moving on to the ankles. I block my knee joint in this case and just draw big, huge circles with my whole foot. I'm inverting it or turning the sole of my foot in, and then I'm plantar flexing or pushing my foot toward the floor, and then I'm everting, rolling my shin or my foot out, and then dorsiflexing, pulling my big toe to my nose, and then 3 times in the reverse direction. Again, just clamping the heels of my hands down firmly on either side of the knee joint to make sure that my knee is now not helping out the ankle rotation. Okay, let's switch to the second side. Get a nice clamp on the knee. Get a good active ankle, and let's go for it. 3 circles each direction. Fun fact, if you've got an ankle sprain history on one side, you may notice a little bit of a less connected communication between your nervous system and the joint, or you just might feel some more tension on that side, and that is very typical. It can last, even if it's a 20-year-old injury, it can last for quite a while. And this kind of movement can help it out. However, typically the right ankle may be a little more tense just because of the general orientation of our bodies and the more weight that we carry on the outside edge of that right foot compared to the left typically makes it just a little bit stiffer. All right, last joint we're going to focus on today, the toes. First drill is 6 reps of lifting the big toe off the ground while keeping the other toes pinned. As you can see, you can manually assist if you're having trouble keeping those toes pinned. It's really hard to get them to not slide across the floor too, but do your best. Next one is kind of a bonus challenge. You're going to lift your big toes up. Oh yeah, inch your feet together a bit so that the heels touch but the knuckles don't. And then you're going to try to lift the big toes up and then try to kiss them together. This is an adduction drill. It's very challenging. If you're having trouble getting it to work, what I suggest is just smushing your big toes all the way together and then kind of pushing against one another to feel that muscle work. I promise you may get a cramp, and that's a sign that you could do more of that work. All right. Next one is kind of a relief, hopefully. You're just going to try to keep the big toes pinned manually or with the effort of the muscles, and then lift all the other toes off the ground and splay them or spread them wide before you set them down for a few bonus points. Next, more relief. Lift all the toes off the ground without letting either your pinky toe edge knuckle or your big toe knuckle lift off as well. So the bases of both arches are still connecting to the floor. And then fan your toes out, and then try to rainbow, pinky, ring toe, middle toe, pointer toe, big toe down one at a time. And then again, bonus points if you can do it without gripping your toes into the floor. I'm having a lot of trouble with this one. And that is it for the day. You did head to toe, all the joints. Thanks for joining.